Captain Vector's log, stardate 76174.9. Another long, hard week on the bridge of the USS TREKnological, but with an airing of another episode of Star Trek Lower Decks, it's time for Captain Schaff and I to enjoy ourselves. Nothing like a brand new episode of Trek and a podcast to unwind. After all, you know what they say, all work and no play makes us dull captains. TGIT! Thank God it's Trek! Woo! It's time for another episode of TREKnological, a Star Trek Shakedown, a short form podcast hosted by two hardworking dads who love to talk Trek. I'm Captain Vactor, and with me each and every week, side by side, unless he's having the birth of another baby, uh, in our co-captain's chair on the bridge of the USS TREKnological, it is Pikes Peak himself, Captain Shaw. How are you, Captain
Ooh,
Shaw?
no more babies. No more babies. Two is the limit. Two.
All right.
That's a little
So-
callback. Previous episode.
Unless we're going to replicate another baby, Captain Shaw's family is complete. But each week on this podcast, we're going to be traveling to a new planet to seek out new Trek news, as well as boldly going through our thoughts on each episode of the current Star Trek show we are talking about, which is Star Trek Lower Decks.
Ooh,
All
look at
right.
our new shirts. Yeah.
We are
Represent.
Ritos, and I have to thank Captain Shaw for purchasing this shirt for me. Thank you, Captain Shaw.
Hey, you're welcome. You know, you got to take advantage of those Star Trek Day discounts, though.
100%. And I actually bought my wife and little baby Trek gear as well. So I decked them out, decked in Trek.
And thank you, Captain Vactor, for this awesome shirt. I'm really excited. It's got
Ooh.
all the ships on it. It's got all the Enterprises, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, Discovery. I'm excited to wear this. I love blue. Blue's my favorite color. So this is
Yes.
going to be a dope shirt. And by the way, these shirts are comfy, right? These shirts,
yeah.
like the material is nice and soft.
Yep. And these
Daddy
were
like.
purchased. You're welcome, Shaw. These were purchased directly from StarTrek.com.
That's right.
So
Not a sponsor.
hopefully, maybe one day. But Shaw, let's get right into it. Let's set a course for the nearest planet, maximum warp.
Aye, sir. Course laid in.
Out there, that away. Yeah. All right, Captain Shaw, let's scan the planet's surface for any sign of Trek news.
I found some Trek news, Captain Vactor.
Thank you very much, Captain Shaw. Please transmit those news articles to our show notes for our listeners. All right, let's continue our weekly mission with our episode discussion of Star Trek Lower Decks. This episode is Season 3, Episode 4, Room for Growth, which first aired on September 15th, 2022, directed by Jason Zurich and John Cochran. And we want to give right away, red alert, red alert, red alert, red alert. All right, enough with the red alerts. I want to say, if you have not watched Star Trek Lower Decks and you don't want to be spoiled on Season 3, Episode 4, Room for Growth, pause the podcast now and come back when you're all caught up. All right, cool. Everybody's caught up. Let's get right into it. The synopsis for this episode, Shaw.
Yes.
Mariner, Boimler, and Tendi clash with their arch rivals, Delta Shift. The Cerritos engineers go on mandatory relaxation leave. So this was, we're nearing the halfway point for the season.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts so far on the season, Shaw?
So, full disclosure, I don't think this is a very strong season.
Ooh.
And maybe that's some harsh words, but to me, it feels really with a lack of direction. Like it's almost like they're not even holding themselves to much of what they promised for their characters. Like Tendy's supposed to be off, pursuing her science officer stuff, but we've really only seen one episode involving that.
Right.
Um, Boimler's supposed to be super bold, which we saw a little bit of that in this, but not much. Mariner is kind of supposed to be like more appreciative of structure and rules, and maybe even exploring a relationship with her Andorian girlfriend. We don't see much of any of that in this episode. And then the whole dynamic of Rutherford and the rest of the lower deckers, he's regularly kind of taken from that group and always put in these engineering scenarios. So he's almost it's never an episode featuring all four together. And that's where it's really strong, is when all four of them are together. But he's off doing his own thing. And so the plot point of like pursuing maybe the lesser known memories that are in the back of his implant, like some mysteries surrounding that. Like we didn't get anything about that this episode or anything, So I just feel like this episode, being that it's like leading into the halfway point of the season, not great. And it just didn't propel the characters in any way, shape, or form. It was very stagnant in terms of their overall like dynamic growth. So I didn't love this episode. I didn't hate it. I definitely found myself laughing a little bit, but all in all, I kind of felt it was really, really middle of the road.
Yeah, I'm along the same lines with you. I'm enjoying the season, but I'm not loving the season. And it's really, I think a lot of the background, season 1 and 2 did a lot of the heavy lifting. And as I'm watching season 3, I've got that, I'm carrying that baggage with me from, oh yeah, season 1 and 2, I built a love for these characters and for this ship. And so season 3, it's kind of like skating or coasting on that goodwill or that momentum that they had. But as far as pushing it forward, so far, we're 4 episodes in, but there hasn't been one that's been outstanding to me, that's knocked it out of the park, so to speak. So yeah, I think this one is right along those lines of another. Yeah, it was good, but not great.
Now, as we'll talk about sort of like the plot points of the episode, this whole aspect of dealing with their arch rivals. Now, obviously, I watched all these episodes kind of quickly in preparation for season 3, like as far as my like binging of the show to get ready for us talking about it. But I don't remember Delta Shift being in previous episodes.
Yeah, I don't either.
Have we seen them? Like I know I know Mariner has talked about them, maybe briefly in passing, very throwaway comments. She talks super fast all the time. So it's like, it's easy to miss things that she says.
Right.
And I kind of feel like it's weird to set up an arch, call that like an arch rivalry when this might be the first time we've seen them and they've been on the ship this entire time. So to me, like in order to, I guess, feel sold on this rivalry, we should have had a lot more interactions with them.
Yeah.
They need to be a regular thorn in their side for it to be a rivalry. To me, it's just like, okay, they're on different shifts. What? They were totally forgettable characters. There was nothing interesting about any of the Delta shifters. So that kind of just didn't really work for me.
Yeah. Just doing a little bit of research, apparently Delta Shift was mentioned in season 1, episode 3. Mariner says, "There's no way the captain noticed that we were padding stuff out. Somebody ratted. I bet it was Delta Shift." And Tendy's like, "Delta Shift is the worst. They think they're so much better than us because they're so much better
there we
than
go.
us."
Like, so if we hear about it, that's one thing, but we haven't seen them before, and now it's season 3, and that's a huge gap to mention them in the beginning part of season 1 and then not again.
Right. I had completely forgot about. I remember that quote now, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I feel like that's just a missed opportunity. Like they could have maybe been a thorn in their side a little bit more frequently, so that this episode definitely would have had a whole lot more, I don't know, an entertainment level, because who doesn't love a good rivalry?
Right. And
but to create one, yeah, I don't know.
Right. And I really liked the cold open of the captain being taken over by that relic, the Darcy archive.
Yeah.
I liked
Manuki.
that whole, yeah. Which her saying Manuki made me laugh every time. But from that cold open, after that, I think it kind of went down the two plot lines of a trying to get on the relaxation for the main crew, and then the lower deckers with the Delta Squad or Delta Shift rivalry. Neither one of them really were fantastic for me. After, like I said, after that cold open, it just kind of just downshifted from there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
did you prefer either one of those storylines? Did you like the Delta better than the other one?
Um, sometimes I feel like the lower deck like writers just choose to do things with the characters that are completely like insane. And I guess my it's kind of one of my gripes with the show is it almost goes a little too far. Like I know it's a
Hmm.
cartoon, but
Right.
there's no way these antics could exist in a non-cartoon version of Lower
Yeah.
Decks. You
Which is
know,
going to be interesting for that live action crossover we're
yeah,
getting.
yeah. You could never bring this into a live action situation without losing some of the risque
Hmm.
quality of this show.
Right.
Like it's definitely a pretty raw, and uh, I just I think that because of that, with the two scenarios, like having the engineers be so obnoxious to their captain, that just didn't make sense to me. Like, what if you're respecting your captain and you're really falling in line with like Starfleet like protocol, then if your captain is like go relax, you're gonna go relax. Like you're not gonna spend the entire episode being punks about it and secretly repairing stuff. So
Right.
that didn't really work for me as well. It was funny, but it didn't really work for me. I love any episode um, with Billups. Paul Scheer is so funny
Yeah.
to me, so I'm so glad that he's so frequently featured. Uh, make him a series regular at this point. Come on, guys, make him a
Yeah.
series
Really.
regular. But as far as the two plot lines, I think probably the ship plot line was more interesting to me. Getting to see different aspects of the ship, the deflector dish area
Right.
where they were like anti-grav boy and stuff. Like that was pretty cool.
That was my favorite part as well. Seeing the lower decks and things that we hadn't seen before on the Cerritos. All those things were definitely cool. Um, the I think this episode in particular, they all have a lot of Easter eggs, but this one in particular had a ton of great callbacks and references to
Oh yeah.
Trek. And Captain Shaw has provided a great article that has a nice breakdown of all the different past Trek Easter eggs and references. So definitely check that out in our
Yeah,
show
we'll put it in
notes.
the show notes as well for our listeners to, if you want to kind of dig into the episode and find some stuff. One thing that stood out to me was when they're going through like the bowels of the ship and they're in like the swampy area, which is basically like where the plants and stuff are. It's like the plant room basically, but
Uh-huh.
there's lots of vines and things. There's a that alien race. I think it was from season 2 that kept replicating whenever it
Yeah,
got uncomfortable
the
or whatever.
Dupler.
Yeah, the duplers. Yeah. There's a skeleton dupler in the plant room, like stuck behind like reeds and stuff. I was like, oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah,
One of
that
them
was
never
great.
made it off the ship.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Callback and writing and just the reverence for the source material and your fans and watchers, something that is rewarding to them, which we've talked about before on this podcast. Lower Decks always rewards you for being a Trek fan and knowing your lore. So that is great. I always
Oh,
always
yeah.
enjoy that as well. Um,
This episode also featured not one, but two lower deckers in their bra and panties. And I was not upset about that. So
yeah, we're gonna have another TikTok with Shaw
I
coming up.
while while I was watching, I was like, oh man, I might have to bring this back again.
Another thirst trap. We actually just got a comment on our YouTube, which if you haven't checked it out, definitely check out our YouTube shorts that Captain Schaff is putting up. We got a comment on that thirst trap talking about Tindy. So if you, dear listener or dear watcher, if you're watching this, always leave a comment and let us know who you're thirsting over on Lower Decks. or in just Trek in general. We will always enjoy hearing your comments. Um, was any standout quotes to you, Shaw, this
Oh
week?
yeah, you know what? There were a couple. There was one that happened around right around the 3 minute mark. This is when Captain Freeman is talking with Billups and Rutherford, and basically saying like, actually, I think it's just Billups, but Shax is in there,
Yeah.
and he's like, she's telling him how he's too stressed, and they need to go and they need to relax, and they've been working too hard, and it's time to take a break. And Billups is like, no, 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 I don't want to break. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. And then she says, well, Dr. Ta'ana raised some concerns, Lieutenant Commander. Her medical opinion is that you are, quote, an effing pile of stress. And every time they cuss on this show, I always laugh because it's bleeped, which is fantastic because I think sometimes bleeps are funnier
Right.
than saying
Yes.
the word, especially on a
100%.
cartoon for a show that is in the Star Trek universe. That is, we don't, people don't cuss. Like it's
Mhm.
very rare that you hear any kind of curse words in Star Trek. And when it happens, it's for dramatic effect, and it's always funny. Like in uh, Star Trek Voyage Home, the fourth film, he's like, "Well, double dumbass on you," like it's like a funny moment because it's like totally out of context, and it's so jarring because you don't expect to hear it. So I love that with Lower Decks. And then the other one that worked for me really well was around the 7 minute 45 second mark. They walk into the holodeck that's running, and Dr. Ta'ana and Shax are in there. They don't know that yet, but it's like a bank simulation, and it ends up being like a bank burglary, like
Like a
robbery heist
heist.
thing.
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure out where they are. And Boimler's like, "Oh, I know what this is. I think this is what people used to use to store their money. It's called a bonk." And I just laughed. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so funny." Which makes
That
perfect
part,
sense why it would be such a foreign concept because they've abolished all money in the
right.
24th century. Um, so
That
yeah.
part, and then Mariner right after that, kind of describing it like, oh,
Oh yeah.
this piece of paper that have no intrinsic value, money. That also made me laugh.
Yeah, yeah.
Both those lines.
Very good, very clever.
Yeah. So that was great.
Anything else stand out to you as far as like quotes or stuff during the episode?
No, I think the deflector dish scene was my like most memorable moment, and we talked about that before. But seeing the inside of it and Boimler flying around, that was very interesting. And then the Schaff thirst trap as actually, you know what? Another thing I just thought of, the hallucinating scene
Oh
where they
yes.
started like tripping out. That scene made me laugh of
That was
them
so
Tindy not
funny. Tendi
yeah,
turned into like a butterfly,
right.
and I liked the part where Tendi was like, "Sorry, I had to break you out of your egg,"
So
and
warm in
she's like,
there.
and you could see like Mariner's like about to cry. She's like, "It was so warm in there."
Yeah. That was funny. Yeah.
When her lip is quivering, I laughed. I was like, "Okay, that's pretty funny."
Yeah.
Like that's like a little nuance. Like
Right.
that's not something that is like easily pick upable, but the fact that she did it, like oh my god, it just sold the scene even more.
Yeah.
So very, very, very funny.
That was
I
cool.
was reading, and this episode is partially inspired by Mike McMahon, the showrunner's personal experience in college when they would do like basically like wherever like they were sleeping that uh, why am I blanking on the word I'm trying to think of? But they would do like bids on who got what room.
Oh, like a
For
dorm
yeah,
room?
exactly. Thank you,
Mhm.
dorm bids. Yeah, and so he was like, it's partially about that and how they would do lotteries and everyone would lose their minds over it. And so he was like, I want to bring this into Star Trek, but also it's heavily inspired by the movie Stand By Me, which is a Rob Reiner movie from 1986, and it's actually based on a Stephen King novella. But ironically enough, Will Wheaton, I just said his
Yes.
name wrong. Will Wheaton and Jerry O'Connell are both in Stand By Me, and Jerry O'Connell voices Ransom on Lower Decks, and Will Wheaton, of course, is a god in the Star Trek universe at this point. So I thought that was kind of ironic. But the point of the connection to Stand By Me is that the movie is more about the journey than the destination.
Hmm.
And this episode is more about the journey than the destination. Obviously, where they end up and where they go doesn't matter as much because it's really about the adventures they had along the way, the friendships that were bolstered and boosted in the process. So so yeah. Now, my main issue with this episode is that it kind of shows a bit of I don't know any other way to say this, a
Say it,
dickish
Shaw.
side of Lower Deckers, that
Hmm.
they're so like the
Petty.
rivalry we haven't really seen on screen. So the fact that they have it out for Delta Shift without really knowing what Delta Shift has done in turn
Right.
kind of makes them out to be not so nice. And
Hmm.
the fact that by the end, they're not even thinking about like the friendship of moving all the beds into the same big dorm. Like now they're thinking of let's make Delta shifters get stuck with the room so that they
Hmm.
have to separate.
Yeah.
So it's like the entire episode they're being vindictive
Right.
and sticking it to him and
Very petty.
celebrating that. And I'm just like, that's not really very redeeming qualities for your protagonists in your story. So uh I just don't know what their plan is with these lower deckers. Like, is the point to keep them in the lower deck, like to keep them making bad decisions, to keep them not, you know, trying to do better and be better? Like,
Right.
I just don't know.
Not move up on the ladder of
Yeah,
their career
exactly. I
field.
mean,
I
we're
think
three
it is
seasons in and they either had a promotion and bucked it or they've never had a promotion yet. So
right. And I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot as far as naming it lower decks because yeah, we have to stay in the lower decks. If they get promoted, then they'll be in the other timeline. They'll be in the other plot line of, oh, that's the A plot. We're only going to focus on the B plot, right? Like,
right.
so I think that is kind of a interesting conundrum. But being animated and being a little bit more wacky and hijinks, I think they can get away with it. But how many seasons? I don't know. We've already got approved for another season of Lower Decks, but will four
Wow.
be the last? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I like the show. But I feel like it needs to have a little bit more of an overarching story. I understand that it's episodic, but
right.
it does have an overarching, story for character
Hmm.
development. But if you don't like make sure your characters are doing that actively in each of these episodes, then you're kind of losing the steam that you create. So that's kind of
Right.
where I'm at. But anyways,
Excellent.
overall, I liked it. I didn't love it.
Yeah, same with me, Shoff. So we'll continue. But how about you, dear listener or dear watcher? What did you think about this episode of Lower Decks? Let us know in the comments on YouTube. Or you can also send us a voicemail. I don't think we talk about the voicemail enough feature, Shoff, on
It's
Anchor.
true.
You can always leave us a voicemail. We will play it on the show. So definitely check that out. But guess what? It is now time, as we have completed our mission recap. Let's talk about this is our new favorite segment, Boldly Dadding, in the universe of I should say, Captain Schaff and Captain Vactor. We like to talk about what we've learned this week or something that happened in our lives, both being busy dads. There's always some type of hijinks that are happening. So, Schaff, what happened this week on your with your crew?
With my crew. Yes, that's right. They're my crew. My cadets. Um, so it kind of came to me that I haven't been doing a really great job with my own health. It is a realization, and I'm slowly coming to it. I'm very my like just block of wood up there. Like I want to be better, and I definitely want to be healthier, and I want to make healthier choices and decisions. I don't put myself first in any capacity. I put myself dead last a lot of times, and when it comes to my family, I would do it in a heartbeat. But it's kind of like a catch-22. Like, you want to put your family first, but if you don't put yourself first, you're not going to be there for your family.
Right.
And Vactor mentioned to me earlier in the week over Discord, it was like, you got to put that oxygen mask on you first before you put it on your kids, the person sitting next to you. So, that definitely inspired me. Cause you're super right. So a few things I've done, I bought some, rollerblades. I used to love rollerblading.
Oh,
So I'm going to get back into
nice.
rollerblading, get
Nice.
out get outside, enjoy the cooler
Nice.
weather. We moved here to Washington to have these cooler temps, and I've been stuck inside working, so I need to get out of the house more. So that's one thing.
Very
We
nice.
restarted Green Chef, so
Ah,
I've been cooking a lot and making a lot of really delicious, healthy meals.
yeah.
We don't 100% commit to this, but we definitely try vegetarian, vegan
Mm,
cooking cuisines as much as possible. I
nice.
rarely order any Green Chef meals with meat anymore, so
Nice.
so that's been really great. And I'm going to start up a subscription with a place called Crunch Fitness,
Oh,
which is
I think
really
they
close to
have
the
that out
house, less than
here.
10 minutes away. It's kind of like a
Yeah.
UFit or a Planet Fitness. Um, one of those ones that's like $10 a month. So it's like not expensive or difficult to afford, which is more my style because I don't need all the bells and whistles. I just
Right.
need, some equipment to get to and that, for people to leave me alone. So yeah. So for me, my boldly dadding like Schaff moment is just like to recognize that I need to be doing things so that I am a healthy dad and can be present for my children as they continue to grow up and become parents of their own children.
Hmm.
So yeah, my dad as well. This week he has gotten back into focusing on his health and so he's been doing a lot of walking around lakes nearby his house and cycling, which I don't think I've ever seen him on a bike before in my life. So that's good for my dad to be doing that. So he's inspiring me to be focusing on me as well. So if I could offer any advice to dads out there, it's you know, put yourself on a higher level so that you can be more present and available and healthy for your kids.
Excellent. That's a great message, Shoff.
Thank you.
Um, and this week, I was thinking about the differences between generations
Mm.
and the way that my dad was raised, let's say the way his dad was raised, and then now how I'm raising my son, how I was raised. And the reason this came up in my life, or the reason it came up in my mind, is I was at my in-laws' house, and my wife's father, um, or actually her stepdad, was talking about changing diapers and how he had 3 children, and he said he had never changed a diaper before. And
Whoa.
me growing up, like, I didn't think of, "Oh, only the wife does the duties." I thought it was equal, and then now that's how I'm living with my wife. We have equal duties around the house, and especially
You
with
said duty.
especially with the baby, with our son, we change diapers just whoever's nearest,
Sure.
"Hey, it needs his diaper change," and I never even thought, "Oh, I will only give that duty to her." And I think it has a lot to do with the way that he was raised and the time period.
Hmm.
And it was just, I think a lot of things were different as far as what is societally acceptable, or what is, oh, this is a man's duty, this is a woman's duty. Um, and everyone is individual as well and has their variations. But I think overall, we're growing up in a different time period now. Just like when my son hopefully has children, it will be a different time period then as well, and maybe he'll have different actions. But just try to instill into my son as best I can all of the things that I've learned and taken in with from my environment. And I think it's just an interesting lesson to learn, is not everybody is the same, not everybody's going to have the
Hmm.
same experiences. But if you can just take through osmosis, or through just as much research as you can, take everything in, and then kind of spit it out to your children, kind of what you want them to learn, the way you, maybe if you wanted to be raised that way, or if you want them to live a life that is more meaningful than yours, or more um, a better, healthier life, I should say. Maybe that's something that you can pass down to them. So that was just my dad moment of the week. This past week was the differences in generations and how we are all raised.
Yeah, you know what? I find that fascinating to me too because I've definitely experienced that as well with Sarah's. Uh, um, she has a lot of her family has passed, but she has an aunt and uncle in Arizona, and they're wonderful. But they were definitely shocked to find out when they first met Emily, my 2 year old. Obviously, when she was much younger at the time, but when they first met her, they were surprised that I took Emily to go change her diaper. And I heard later after the fact, Sarah was talking to me. She's like, "Yeah, they were really surprised that you just like volunteered, just like picked her up, didn't like didn't ask if you should or didn't like try to pass her off or anything." Like you just went and I was like, of course I would. I would just do it. Like she's got a dirty diaper, it needs to be changed. But I think about that going forward now. Like we're the generation that ends that. We're breaking that cycle. So our kids will see that we as parents had no issues with that. They will then as well um, grow up with that. So like our generation kicked it to the curb. That like idea of the parental roles, that traditional sense of men don't do any child rearing or care or things like that. Like they're just meant to provide. No, we can do the whole spectrum. We just can't feed them. Okay, we can't use our boobies to give them milk. Like, yeah, we
Right.
can, and we can bottle feed, sure, but like, there's a limit to what a dad can do in that physical sense. But what we can't do, we can make up for in other avenues. So I think it's pretty cool that we're the generation that has ended that sense of that traditionalism that doesn't have any place in our society anymore. So
Yeah. Well said, Shoff. Well
thank
said.
you.
Well, I think that's going to wrap up this episode of TREKnological, but we'd like to thank you, whoever you are, for listening to this and every episode of TREKnological. Don't forget, you can always share us with your family and friends who love Star Trek, and maybe even your fellow dads out there. You want to share something, because our Boldly Dadding section, we specifically spotlight something that happened to us during the week and how we are dads. Maybe we can give something to you. Maybe we can give you some information or some experience that we've had, and maybe that'll help you out. So definitely feel free to share us with anyone that you know. But feel free to follow us on all of our social media handles. That's Trek No Pod on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. And like I said earlier in the show, Shoff is doing a Herculean task of putting together all of these great creative ideas for the shorts, whether it's YouTube shorts, TikTok, or Twitter or Instagram Reels. Shoff has been putting some fantastic work into that. So definitely subscribe to us on YouTube and TikTok specifically. Those are our favorite places, but Instagram and Twitter as well. All of those places you can find us
Yeah.
at TreknoPod. Don't forget, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, feel free, if you are so kind, leave us a 5-star review. That helps us get noticed, just like sharing us does as well. But leaving us a review definitely helps the Apple and Spotify algorithms to say, hey, this is one that people are enjoying, this one they're liking. So we're going to share it out with as many as we can. So if you would be so kind, we would definitely appreciate it. Next week, we're going to be talking about season 3, episode 5 of Star Trek Lower Decks. So be sure to join us then. Hopefully, it will be on an upswing with the momentum
Yes.
and not on a downswing. Um, but, Shav, I believe our mission of the week is complete. Factor and Shaw here, two to beam up.
Live long and prosper.